Hey, welcome to the channel. It's Jack with Stronghold Strength and Conditioning. And today, I'm giving you my 3 pillars of mobility training to help you maximize your efforts. But before we get into it, make sure you take a moment and hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss out on future content like this. Every Saturday, I'm putting out videos showing you how to resolve aches and pains, prevent injuries, and overall optimize your performance inside the gym and outside of it in your daily life and routine. It doesn't get better than that. So take advantage of it. Ready? Let's go ahead and get into this one. All right, like I said, today's video, we're gonna be talking about the 3 pillars of mobility training. And I think this is an extremely important topic because it's very misunderstood what mobility actually is. It is kind of an all-encompassing term that gets lost in its effect because we don't have a good definition to what mobility truly is. And today we're going to give you that definition through these 3 different pillars and explain why it's so important that you understand and approach each of these different pillars to maximize your efforts in your mobility training. Ready? So, the very first thing that we need to have is a base definition of what mobility really is. And to simplify this definition, I like to use a little bit of an equation. And it goes like this. Mobility equals range of motion plus flexibility plus stability/strength. Those 3 components right there are the 3 pillars that we're going to be using today to help improve and define your mobility training work, because they're hitting multiple systems, and I'll explain each system that we're working on in that as we go over each of those pieces. But again, that equation is mobility equals range of motion, flexibility, plus stability and strength. And when those 3 pillars come together, that's when you're going to see the most out of your mobility training. Let's start to talk a little bit about our first one here, range of motion. So range of motion, first of all, we have to understand addresses our joint mechanics. When we look at the range of motion of a joint, we're looking at the actual range that it can access, whether that be passively or actively. And we need to have joints that are articulating well on one another. So when we talk about range of motion, the important thing to understand that this is our structure that is underneath it all. The actual structural foundation that we're working from in our skeletal system itself and how well that is doing its function. Part number 2, flexibility. When we add flexibility into the mix, now we're looking at our soft tissues. So the quality of our soft tissues, not just the ability of them to lengthen through the range that they're designed to, but the actual health of those tissues and whether they glide over one another the way that they should, or if there's restrictions or adhesions or other things that are limiting their effectiveness in that range and the position. So when we look at flexibility, it is all about the quality of the tissues around those joints now. So we're talking about muscle, we're talking about fascia in this as well, and even connective tissues like ligaments and tendons. So this is where all that comes together to support the structure itself. And if we can address the flexibility with our structure at the same time, that's where we're going to start to see even bigger improvements. So these are the 2 starting points that we want to be able to address, but there's an even bigger point here that needs to be addressed throughout the rest of our day. And that's where our 3rd piece comes in with stability and strength. Now, when we look at stability and strength, we're actually looking at the control of our nervous system, our ability to activate, fire, and create stable positionings that are going to serve us well to help our joints maintain good articulation and healthy quality movement where they're not pounding themselves into the ground because of tension or overuse of certain muscle groups. So being able to neurologically balance ourselves in a way that structurally helps us out, as well as keeps the improvements in the soft tissues so that they are at a higher quality as well. Because when they are out of balance, that's going to cause problems in antagonist or agonist muscles, where they are actually favoring one side of our body versus another. It's compensation. So when we put those three together, the range of motion, the flexibility, and the stability and strength, you can see that we're hitting multiple systems in our body right there. The, again, skeletal system, the muscular system, the fascial system, and then our nervous system. And when all four of those start to comply and work together, that's where you're gonna see big gains in the mobility that you have overall. So when people talk about flexibility, that's just one component of our mobility. When people talk about range of motion, that's just one component of our overall mobility. And when people talk about their strength or stability exercises, that's just one component of our overall mobility. And if you're using them separately, you are never going to maximize your mobility, because you're only focusing on one of those pillars of the tripod versus putting them all together. So we need to understand, when we work with our mobility, we want to be addressing all three of these pillars to maximize our efforts overall. All right, and there you have it. The three pillars that you need to be focusing on to help you overall maximize your mobility training efforts. And if you have not had mobility defined up to this point, hopefully that gives you more clear direction as to how to go about your mobility training, and how it is a bigger thing than just stretching, or just working on stability exercises, or just practicing different ranges of motion at your joint. It all comes together to create our overall mobility. And the better you can train all three of those, the better your mobility will be overall. If you like this video, make sure you let me know by clicking that big thumbs up down below, and take a moment to share this one with a friend, especially if they've been saying that they need to work on their mobility. Give them some help in this direction as well. If you are somebody who's struggling with training aches or injuries, or you're simply limited because you have stiffness and that is holding back your mobility, but you want to improve in the next 12 weeks or sooner, what I want you to do right now is drop down below in the description and fill out the coaching application. I'll get in contact with you, and we'll talk about getting you moving in the right direction so that you can be getting through these restrictions, getting past your pain, and feeling your best. Last but not least, if you have not already, make sure you take a moment and hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss out on future content like this. Every Saturday, I'm putting out videos showing you how to resolve aches and pains, prevent injuries, and overall optimize your performance inside the gym and outside of it in your daily life and routine. And it does not get better than that. Welcome to the Stronghold Army. See you next week.